talking about practice. Not a game, not a game. We talking about practice. Practice, man.
Hello, friends. I've been looking on the freeway and in the streets of LA and seeing billboards for CrankYankers coming back. And even though I wasn't a huge fan of the series, I love puppets and I love Muppets puppets. And I always thought there was something really funny about the particular look of Muppet puppets and the puppets that they used in CrankYankers. So I thought I would take a little bit of time and try to figure out what makes these puppets tick and what makes them look so funny. I ended up devoting a couple sketchbooks to it. I thought maybe we would look at the sketchbooks together and see what I was doing for right or for wrong, and we can maybe call this the anatomy of a Muppet puppet. A lot of these pages are other projects, so I'm going to be skipping around a little bit, but to start off with, there is something undeniably funny about these CrankYankers puppets. This one was Eminem. This is sort of like a Prince character. You look at them and you can't help but laugh. I thought to myself that they would make a great style for caricatures if I could figure out systematically what is going on with them. I wouldn't necessarily want to make caricatures that looked like Muppets, but if they had that same quality to them that is undeniably funny, I thought that I might be onto something. There's something relating to the idea that it's such a basic construction. There's this outside shape that's very easy to identify, and there's this frontal lobe of a mouth in pretty much all the puppets that's exactly the same, and a big droopy bottom lip that forms a big smile. And the eyes are almost always simple circles, ovals, that do have a bit of construction to them, and we'll get to that later. And there's always a droopy round nose, and everything seems to be built around that construction, and yet they're able, by varying the hair shapes and the hair styles and various facial features like mustaches, to get a wide variety of characters out of it. And then also, by varying that shape and the shapes inside just simply by like changing their width and height, making fat or skinny characters, there's a lot of variation too. What I ended up doing was going to a page of characters. I ended up going to a page called nuttypuppets.com, and this is just nothing but puppets. It's a great site. I guess they make the puppets for CrankYankers, and there's tons of faces here. And this is where I'm getting all this practice material. nuttypuppets.com. And these are just characters, great characters. And as caricature artists, we can kind of see these archetypes in the faces that we draw and make a great wacky cartoon. I thought this would be great practice material. I'm really still trying to figure out what is the best shape here that represents the Muppet face, and whether or not it's general enough to work for all caricatures, or whether it needs to be modified, or whether it's just one of several templates that could be used. There seems no doubt that this shape is appearing over and over again. Here it is from the other side. And we see that in a lot of caricature artists' work, working from this kind of a forehead-jaw combination here. And if you get good at drawing that shape, you can really whip it out with a lot of panache. Some of these drawings reflect that, some don't. And then when you combine that shape with the droopy lip, you end up getting a construction that is somewhat repeatable. And I think this drawing kind of represents that. Let's move on to the second sketchbook. I started with basically that same idea. A top shape that includes the lip, the kind of lobe, frontal mouth part, the forehead, the brow and forehead, all in one block. Leaves enough forehead that you can build a realistic hairstyle, and then is very simple down this side. It seems like there's enough to build on there, so I ended up doing quite a few drawings to see what more could be done building on that foundation. A lot of times you lose concentration and these drawings go nowhere. You start off with a good plan and eventually you end up either getting distracted or just sort of fizzling out. Here I'm definitely going back to my Nutty Puppets, because these characters are right off of the Nutty Puppets page. This is just a nice variation in head shapes and hairstyles, and not everybody is open mouth smiling. I thought to myself, let's at least get a handle on what head shapes are in use here. And if we can take a head shape that seems to be working and kind of turn it three-dimensionally, we can maybe get back on track. So that's, I think, where we are here. Drawing these eyes is a real art, and the artists who can do it in one stroke have a real advantage, because their art has this, I don't know exactly how to describe it, it has a panache to it that artists don't have when, like me, they're noodling every single line and so nervous that that no stroke has any authority to it. These Muppet characters do give you a chance, when you really get into a nice groove, to get a good lather going and have good, powerful strokes. Well, here I am again working on a couple different approaches to the Muppet head. Here I'm wide on the top and narrow on the bottom. Here I'm wide on the bottom, narrow on the top. I'm seeing what can be done with that basic formula. If all we're going to be having to work with is the mouth region leading up to a head and a very simple forehead brow kind of thing, and then a big smile, well, what kind of variation are we allowed? Well, we can certainly vary this and this ratio and this height, and as we'll see later, this shape can be varied, and maybe this shape too, and this shape too, whether it needs to be like this or like that. Here I really start doing more loose, fun drawings. You can start seeing more of a rhythm and authority to the strokes. And I'm probably, again, just copying straight from Nutty Puppets and maybe adding a little bit of my own flair to it. With these Nutty Puppets, because they're physical objects, there is a built-in balance and structure to them. They have to fit together because they actually have to exist in the world. So some of the errors that we make as artists are actually going to be impossible. And if you just can copy what they're doing, you'll end up with a nice balanced figure, something that is structurally sound. As I got to this one, I think I started to see that the top shape here is really one line, and the artists who I really admire as caricature artists are doing a lot with, like I was saying, single strokes, unbroken strokes that have energy to them and a variance in line width. So I thought to myself, it would be amazing if this entire oh so important move that we make as caricature artists, the mouth, the frontal part, the front of your face, the brow, and the forehead was all one clean, hard stroke. And as we started to go along here, I think I started to get the hang of just that. Maybe not so much with this one, but with this one, this shape here is definitely a one-stroke shape. I think the question is, for a face like that, as fun as something like that is to draw, is there anybody who really looks like that? If somebody was to sit down, could we imagine, I don't know, your Samoan neighbor coming? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess you could. And maybe this is a face that could be generally repeatable, or a face shape that could be generally repeatable. The noses could vary, the eyes could vary. you know, I guess this is, we're onto something here. This formula, the Muppet head, definitely bears further work. Here I started to really get more into the CrankYankers characters. And treating this shape in different ways. This drawing started going in another direction, and I started getting, really loose. With this one, I said, all right, let's see if we can get funky with the teeth and the mouth and just every one of these shapes. Try to draw funnier shapes. And you really do see a very clear skull in this. That's almost my litmus test for a character design. Is it going to be anatomically faithful, or are you just getting wild and making crazy shapes? But there's definitely something there that's credibly a skull. And this page, although I haven't really been able to reproduce these drawings in subsequent attempts, was, I think, the best that these sketches got. Because this really does look kind of like someone that we know, There's their hair, and they don't have to have quite this big a lip, but that is funny. And there's enough room down there for a realistic jaw. And this one here, I put a funnier nose and gave her a top lip. And you're starting to see, your cousin here. The vampire teeth don't have to be so pronounced, but maybe she does have teeth like that. So that's basically where I am. I'm trying to create some fun character designs based on CrankYankers and the amazing puppets that I found at nuttypuppets.com. It's worth always exploring what makes funny things work. You're trying to make your own funny things, and there is stuff out there that already is working. So why not try to copy it, In my case, I did create a animated property or a cartoon property once upon a time, and it was in many ways based on these same puppet principles, although we never made puppets out of it. It was called the Nickel Dime. It was based on my life experiences in Oakland, California. And the art in particular had a lot of puppet-esque characters. The aim also was to create something where I could create a almost color form base of shapes and then just fit them together in the comic strips so that I wouldn't have to be redrawing everything, almost like you would do with a Flash cartoon. And that was more or less successful. What you discover is that something can be really funny and basic when it's moving, but when it's static, if it doesn't have different poses, it can kind of look boring. So with the caricature art and even what we might call the puppet style, you don't necessarily want to have the same uniformity of shapes that you see here or in real puppets, which again have to be physical objects, because by putting a little extra squeeze here and there and a little extra push and pull, you can get the actual dynamic quality of life out of them. But I thought these character designs did kind of work when I did do that, as you can see maybe in the pencil drawings down there in purple under Wallgrove. Anyway, it's on my website, scottgross.works. Just go to the nickel dime, and you can read the stories as well as look at the concept art. Alright, friends, I just wanted to say thank you again for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and wish me luck in these drawings, and good luck in your own explorations of CrankYankers and Muppet puppets. Happy drawing.